We'll get started in just a moment. We've got a few more people signing in. We'll give them just a minute to be seated. Good afternoon, and welcome to the We Are Blessed 2019 annual meeting. My name is Greg Peterson. I am delighted to serve as the President Board for the 2018 year. And in order to kick things off for us, it's 1:36. I'm going to invite Reverend Pat up to open our annual meeting in prayer.
So let us go to that place that we know so well. Let us take that deep breath and just focus our attention inward for a moment, relaxing our body and relaxing our minds, feeling that gratitude as it flows through us, gratitude for each other, gratitude for this community, and the difference it is making in our lives and the lives of so many other people. So we are indeed grateful. We see this meeting unfolding in a way that is a blessing to each and every person and truly a blessing to our congregation. Divine order is present, and we say thank you, God, and so it is. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Pat. I'd like to introduce you to your current Board of Trustees. I'll invite them each to come up. Margie Olson is your Vice President. Teresa Belden is our Secretary. Jim Knepp, our Treasurer. Michael Showalter, our Assistant Treasurer. Judith Killian is our Member at Large, and our fearless leader, Reverend Pat Williamson. Thank you, everybody. We have a jelly-packed agenda, as per usual. So I invite you to take your seat, and we'll dive right in. I won't spend a lot of time on this, but lots of information regarding strategic planning. You'll hear a lot of information about what our different departments within Unity Minneapolis are doing. When you came in today, you should have received a handout. In order to streamline this a little bit, we've had each of our various departments within the organization write some information for you, sharing numbers, etc., so that we won't spend a lot of time in our PowerPoint, hopefully. And also, you would have received a copy of our meeting from last year, 2018 annual meeting. And in addition to that, on the other flip side of that is also a copy of the agenda for today. So if you can move through the agenda slide, I don't think we need to spend a lot of time here, but the very first order of business for us in our annual meeting this afternoon is the approval of our 2018 meeting from last year. So if there is a member in our midst who would be willing to make a motion that we accept those. Diane, let it be noted that Diane Hanson, thank you, Diane, has made a motion. Do I have a second on that emotion? Judith Killian has seconded that emotion. Is there any discussion regarding the 2018 annual meetings? All right. I think what we did is if memory serves, I think if people had slipped past who hadn't signed in at the meeting, perhaps, then maybe they brought down some ballots. Does that clarify? Right. So that probably should be amended. Oh. Okay. So can we update the minutes to read under the nominating committee report? Gloria Smith, nominating committee chairperson, provided an update of the candidates running in this year's election, and ballots were passed out to those attending our annual meeting so that they could vote. Do I have a motion to accept that amendment? Thank you. Okay, thank you. And a second? Margie Olson. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the amended 2018 annual meeting notes? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Moving right along, I'm going to invite up my dear friend, Patty Shevik, to provide her nominating committee report.
Thank you, Bob. Good afternoon. As Greg said, my name is Patty Shevik, and I was the chair nominating committee for this past year. And the people that served with me is, of course, Reverend Pat, because the minister serves on that committee, and then myself. Joan Bittner was who you voted for, and we'll vote again at the end of the meeting for congregational representative. And then Michael Showalter was the board liaison. And our goal as a nominating committee is to fulfill the bylaws, meaning that we met sometime in October, look at obviously the candidates that are available, look at how many positions that we need to fill. We held an orientation and invited people to come if they wanted to hear more about being on the board. Lucky for us, all three openings, those three people decided to run again and were eligible to run it again, so it made our job quite easy. We did have a couple people that expressed interest for maybe future, which is always good as well, just showing the health of people wanting to be on the board. So for this year, you would have received in the mail the committee, the people that we're nominating today, and we've got Teresa Belden, Margie Olson, and then Greg Peterson. So what we have is we've got 3 positions that are open. There are 2 3-year roles and 1 2-year. The reason there's 1 2-year role is because Teresa Belden stepped in when a board member moved, I think, to Mexico. So we needed to fill that role, and how that's done is the board nominates and chooses somebody, and then she accepted. So what you'll do today is you should have a ballot if you're a member, the orange ballot, and you'll vote for 2 people. And basically it's just deciding who gets the 3-year terms, and then there's a 2-year term. All people are getting in, so it's just a way for us to make that distinction. So if you want to vote now, and then I'll come and collect those. Am I missing anything? I think that's it. And then we'll let you know towards the end of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Alice. I'm kidding. Thank you, Patty. All right. Now, I think we're moving right into our minister's report. So I will invite Reverend Pat up.
"2018, what a year. What I thought was going to be a 3-month sabbatical turned into a left knee replacement and then a body diagnosed with cancer. The good news is that I'm now cancer-free and I'm able to dance on a replaced knee." Just let me turn my ballot into No, that's not it, I think. I am grateful for all the support given to me by my Eddie, our board, our staff, congregation that loved me back to health and wholeness. Reverend Phil, as the part-time interim, was able to cover most of the hours and had covered responsibilities during my absence. Reverend Phil brought many gifts and talents to our congregation, and his wife, Reverend Laura, was a gift to our community as well. We are blessed to have them in Minneapolis this past year, and I can assure you that I will be calling on them often. For the entire year, we operated without a full-time associate minister, and our part-time associate, Reverend Jeanette, was out for several weeks because of her own health issues. Reverend Phil helped with the associate's responsibility, and our prayer chaplains helped us with pastoral care during this difficult time. Thank you. We also operated for a time without an executive director after the resignation of Greg Bajeski. His responsibilities were absorbed by various staff members until his replacement was hired. We just all pitched in. Special thanks to Maggie Engel, our bookkeeper, who stepped up with additional hours until we hired our executive director. She was a lifesaver. We also operated without a youth and family ministry director until today. Nancy Mielo and Wendy Brown-Baez filled in the gap until we found that right and perfect person who began today. Special thanks to our wonderful youth and family volunteers. I don't think I've ever experienced this type of year in ministry, ever. It was challenging, to say the least. And yet, I am so pleased that our staff and our board really stepped up and did not miss a beat in providing the services that this congregation expects and deserves. It was a good year. We were blessed. With all the challenges and opportunities that we faced in 2018, it was overall a very good year. Yes, it was. An outstanding year? Maybe not. And good in relationship to what is happening in churches and unity churches in our country. I found the series by the Star Tribune this year, Test of Faith, the unchurching churching of America, very interesting. How many of you read that series? So you know what they were sharing with us. This series brought it very close to home. Many mainstream churches are still closing and attendance is dropping drastically, and churches are rapidly closing or merging. Unity is also closing some churches. Many cannot afford to keep the door open. We have over 40 churches of the 600 that are open for senior leadership today. Many in our own Minneapolis-St. Paul area have gone a year, at least a year, if not longer, without senior minister leadership. If you did not get one, be sure to pick up the 2018 in review. You will see that we were pretty flat or slightly below 2017. This includes membership, slightly down, adult education, slightly down, youth and family ministry, flat, pastoral care, slightly down. That may be a good thing. Not as many people sick and needed pastoral care, but slightly down. Outreach, flat. Music, growth slightly up. Electronic communication, slightly down. With all of this, our finances were solid as a rock. We grew $62,000 in income over the previous year. and our expenses has been kept in line. Thank you. Thank you all for making this happen. Our expenses, obviously, one of the things that helped keep our expenses in line was some of the lack of personnel that we did not have during the year that we had planned for. We continue to use technology to provide Sunday morning worship experiences. We are adapting to technology, and if we're going to grow, we must continue to enhance our technology for worship and also for adult education. Overall, we had a good year, a year that we can be very proud of. We are not closing, we are not merging, we are not laying people off, and we are doing good things in our community. I believe with all my heart that if we were not here, that it would be greatly noticed, not only for our membership, but also for our community outside of these walls. We are making a difference. Overall, we are making a huge difference. Thank you for support. It was a good year, and we are blessed. I'd like to give a quick update for our associate minister. We've been posting at Unity Worldwide Ministries for over a year for our associate minister. We've had 3 applicants during this time. None of them, we brought in one, but overall, none of them fit the profile that we are looking for. Again, we have over 40 openings out of approximately 600 churches that are open for senior leadership. Many have gone for over a year without that leadership. We now have over 90 students in the ministerial education program, which is good, and yet some of these programs are over time, it's a 9-year period. I have heard through a fairly reliable source that we have about 16 students that will actually be ordained in June. And many of these are being credentialed so that they can continue to serve their communities that they are currently serving. So we've had very few students actually seeking placement in a church. What have we done? Well, we've reworked the posting twice. I have stepped onto serving on something called License and Ordination. That's L&O. It's a team that gets to look at students and determine whether they are in their place where they're supposed to be in their process of ordination. Of course, I'm there also looking for, would he be right? Would she be right? So I'm pleased to serve on that team of license and ordination to serve our greater movement, but I'm also on that team to look and see what's happening. I have just returned from a Unity Summit in Houston, where I kept my ear to the ground for the right and perfect associate. Rather than hire the wrong associate, I would prefer not to hire and perhaps even groom from within. So I'd like to tell you there was no one at the summit that was knocking their doors out to go and want to be an associate minister anywhere. And what I hear is, it's so cold, it's so cold. Of course, my timing might not have been absolutely perfect at that summit with what was going on. Bottom line, I know that the right and perfect person is there for us as our associate minister, and that is one that is a blessing to us, and we are a blessing to them. In the meantime, we are doing well, and we're all just doing a little bit more. Strategic plan, onward and upward and onward. We adopted in September 2017, and yet we have made tremendous headway, I believe, in 2018. As you're aware, our theme for the 100th year anniversary is honoring our past and creating our future. The strategic plan is the roadmap that we'll be using to create our future and to continue to create our vision of a transformed world. The manifestation of the strategic plan will assist us in living into our mission. More about our strategic plan will be talked about later. I want to give a thanks to all of those that have truly given their time and effort to this plan, tremendous plan and tremendous effort. It is exciting about our potential and what is happening here. Blessings and gratitude abound. I want to give a shout out to some very special folks that helped me this past year with some very special projects. All of our staff that took an extra work during this time of transition. They went over and above the call of duty to provide services and programs to our community. In other words, we all did more with less. A special thank you again to Reverend Phil for saying yes to our community and being in the right and perfect place at the right and perfect time. He brought with us wonderful gifts. Thank you, Reverend Phil. A special thank you for Reverend Jeanette that continues to provide the pastoral care that is so vital and important to our community. Even with her own health challenges, she has stayed the course and remained dedicated to pastoral care ministry. Even when she was not able to drive, her husband would drive her so that she could make the pastoral care calls. That is dedication. Our board, I want to thank them for their love and support during this past year, especially around my health issues. Also, thank you as you step into stronger sense of governance, and they are. Thank you for your dedication and commitment to transparency. And thank you for the leadership of Greg Peterson, our board president. A special shout out to Nancy Merritt for helping me with interviews, questions, procedures concerning openings around the associate minister position and the executive director position. Thank you. Her support was most valuable and appreciated. A thank you to our leadership staff that was part of that interview process as well. When we interview someone, our staff is also part of that because it's important, my dear friends, that our staff is in agreement and they see themselves, this person fitting in to our team. A special thank you to our youth and family ministry team, Kristen Helen, Andrew Kaiserman, Carol Johnson, John Ashman, and of course our leadership staff that were part of the interview process for our youth and family ministry director. A thank you to Connie Eckert that has stepped in and helped with adult education in the absence of an adult education minister. Thanks to all 35 of you that made an international trip possible this past year as we went to the Holy Land. What an experience. We're also planning for 2020, another trip. Special thanks to all our wonderful, incredible volunteers that make this place their home. We could not do without you. We've also had some staff changes this past year. Obviously, we bring in Nancy Maniello has stepped into the executive director position and is doing a wonderful and outstanding job. Thank you, God. Also, Tyler Geisman, he is a young man that is our custodian, and he too has stepped into a position, quite a learning curve, but overall doing a good job for us. Thank you, God. And of course, today, we announced our new youth and family ministry, Cassidy Meeks. And so we're grateful for you as well. What a year it's been. Overall, we can be proud that we've had a very good year. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Pat. Let's give another round of applause for our staff. They've done an amazing job this past year. Thank you. Now we'll move into my president's report. I want to just share a few highlights with the group. There'll be lots more information coming from some of our other board members, so I'll be turning it over to them shortly. First and foremost, I am very, very delighted to share about Reverend Pat. He is being awarded the Charles Fillmore Award at UWM Annual Convention in Kansas City. That will take place on the 20th of June. We are affirming that we're going to be able to bring a contingency of our congregation to participate and be present at that service, so watch for more information about that. So kudos to Reverend Pat. And this award, it recognizes his enormous contributions to the unity movement. So, very proud of him. Technology. It's official. We are live streaming our annual meeting for the very first time today. So we want to welcome our people tuning in at home with us today. We also do have the ability to take questions from those individuals, so I'm going to provide a few instructions for them right now so that they can queue any of those up so we can respond to those when we get to the Q&A session. If you're streaming on Facebook with us, feel free to post any question in the comment section. Jay is monitoring those, and he'll be able to bring those questions forward. Also, if you're streaming through our website, below the video there's a section that says leave a reply. You can post your questions in that form, and again, those will be brought forward during our Q&A session. So we're holding the vision. I think we need a visioning board for our associate minister. The other thing I wanted to share in terms of highlights is related to technology, is that we have contracted with a tech firm to provide IT support, TechGen. They'll be providing ongoing IT support for our organization. We started that contract in January. All systems go. Everything seems to be working amazingly well. Our contract with them will include a complete tech assessment that will outline recommendations for technology improvements and upgrades. So I want to thank all of the members of our technology committee for their work and research in finding this resource for Unity Minneapolis. And the addition of TechGen will also free up Mr. Jay Berger to refocus his energies on electronic communications for our community. So live streaming, service archives, promotional videos, website, peak of the week, Facebook, and other social media. So this is great news, and a part of our stepping into our strategic planning. Youth and family ministry. If you want to move to the next slide, Jay. We are actively creating conscious connections. That was another umbrella initiative for us in terms of our strategic planning efforts. OWL, after the success of OWL, our whole lives with our YOU, this curriculum has been expanded to include our Uniteens. We also have an enthusiastic planning team in place for our Passionate and Engaged Parents initiative. Recent events include our Meet the Parents night that we had in January. Our All Together Now initiative underway. We had our very first successful service happening last November, Gratitude Sunday. That was the Sunday before Thanksgiving. And our next scheduled service on the books for that is Mother's Day. So please plan on being a part of that. And then our Bringing Unity Home initiative is also underway to ensure that youth and parents have the tools and the resources that they need for living Unity principles throughout the week in their homes. This is a youth and family ministry. As a board member is an area that I championed, and I'm very proud of all the work along with everybody that participated on that team. Nancy Maiello has done an enormous job in supporting that as well. So. Great, so we have a lot more information to share with you regarding facilities, also our ongoing 100-year centennial celebrations. So more information about each of these will be shared a bit later in our meeting by Margie Olson and Judith Killian, respectively. So moving right along, I believe we have our treasurer's report. So I will invite, facilities report, I'm sorry. Margie Olson.
Hello, everyone. It has been a busy year. Busy. So a little walk back in time for you. A couple of years ago, here in church in April of 2016, we passed out a survey, and we passed out pencils, and people filled out the survey as a captive audience. So during each of the 3 services, we took 5, 6, 7 minutes, and people filled stuff out. We asked, who are we? Who should we be? What do we want to do in the future? 380 surveys were returned, and we compiled all that data. The next thing we did is we did an appreciative inquiry process, which is something we had done in the past. So we revamped that, and we did interviews. We did some group stuff, some small groups. We did some focus groups. We did some one-on-one interviews. We trained people on how to help us with that. We did some online surveys so that we got a chance to listen to say, Who are we? Who do we want to be in the future? And how do we want to get there? And after compiling all of that data and looking at what we really heard from you and what we know to be true about our vision, we came up with 3 strategic intentions. And they are, we are a globally recognized center for spiritual growth and transformation. So that's one of the 3. We consciously create connections that celebrate authentic relationships in the world. And then we are a flagship ministry that demonstrates excellence in our leadership, technology, and facilities. And from all of that data, we came up with 15, 16 specific goals, strategic goals underneath intentions that fit into those 3 categories. And then we said as a board, and staff gave input, where should we start? So we have all of this. We can't do it all by next month because that's just not how it works. And so let's be strategic about what we start with. As you can imagine, these overlap. There are pieces that connect to other pieces, and it's not a blank canvas because we're already here. And so it's not like we can just go somewhere and just start over. We're doing that as we do our day-to-day. And so we chose 4 goals to focus on initially, which is the reporting that Greg just did, including facilities. And now as a board during this year, we will begin to choose those next goals to aim at as we're following through on the pieces that we've already started. So a big part of that then is facilities. And even though this series in the Star Trib and other news that you've heard talks about how the concept of church is showing up differently for different demographics at this point, we still need a place. So far, we need a place. And so what does that place look like? And it includes both the physical as well as what is the virtual piece of that. So technology is an important part. The place that we go is an important part. Accessibility. How do we welcome? How do we achieve our other goals via facilities? And so we have had a very busy year with a group of people that have been working through facilities, including the board has been meeting on it every month. Okay? So here's what we've done in 2018. We thought about our current facilities. We reviewed some plans that committees had done in the past. This is not the first time that we have talked about facilities. Long before I came here, you had committees, you had architects, you had work being done, you had plans being considered, you had discussions in a lot of different committees. So we took all of that and looked at what had already been grappled with and decided, and then what are our pain points and our opportunities in relation to our vision in this space. And one of them, of course, is accessibility. Another is the way that the building is laid out, some of our challenges. And so we began a process to think about what would we need to do in order to use expertise to get the facilities that we absolutely dream about. And so we thought about a process for who can help us do that. And then we decided we would choose an architect, so we developed a process to do that. We started with a list of 15 or 20. We invited 7 to come in. We then interviewed, we had people walking through next door, which we also own, and around the perimeter as well as inside the building. And then we narrowed that to 4. So the Facilities Committee as well as the board has been working on all of that process. Narrowed it to 4, did some more work, narrowed it to 2. And then we did some field trips. So we went out to see spaces that those 2 architects had actually been participating in. And so we had it down to 2, and then we chose among committee members and then among the board. And I'm here to tell you that we chose Van Man Construction as our architect. Now, they are also a construction company, but we're starting right now with just design, the design phase. So you're going to start to hear from them, and they're going to start to participate with us in the process for transforming our space, whether it be physically here or somewhere else. And starting next Sunday on the 24th at 1:30 here, we're going to start doing that. So when you come to that meeting, you'll be sitting here, but we're actually going to meet in small groups, and we're going to meet in large groups, and we're going to come and line up, and it'll be very dynamic and interactive. We're already just going to start taking the data that we were working with and imagining what do we need in order to transform our world? What space do we need to do that? And they're going to help us with that. And we, even though we chose the architect without necessarily doing a survey on that, the other pieces from this will come, you and I, we will all do this together. So we need your help, and let's start that process. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Margie. Now I will invite our treasurer, Jim Knepp, forward.
All right, thank you, Greg, and welcome. Glad to see all of you here today. So we have a good news story, and I know this is probably a little bit challenging to look at, but I think it's interesting because it's a 5-year perspective on this church. So some of you, how many of you been here for at least 5 years? Okay, well, then you know what this means. So 2014 is on the far right, 2018 is on the far left. The 3 rows below that, the first row is income, then expense, and then budgeted income. So we always start out with a budget, right? Like each of us do in our home every day, right? So at church, we have a budget. So what is the coloration here? The far left, the very black bar is the income. The kind of the teal colored middle is the expense. And then to the right is budgeted income. So I don't have a pointer, unfortunately, so you're just going to have to pretend everything really looks really great right up there. And it does. Because in the income in 2014 was just over $900,000 against a budget of $850,000. Flash forward, 2018, thanks to all of you, we have had the largest income ever at $1.2 million. So, good job. Just roughly within 2% of budget, and as Reverend Pat mentioned before, this is a key growth of $62,000 in income over a year ago, and almost $300,000 from 4 years ago. So it's tremendous growth. We are prosperous. We are living our unity principles greatly here. Our expenses for 2018 was actually 10% below budget. So great work by the staff by managing expenses, keeping those low. Great work by Reverend Pat and other leaders here to look at that. And as Reverend Pat also indicated earlier, there's been some openings on the staff, so that impacts salary, which impacts obviously expenses. So that's why that was less than the budget. So I think it's just a nice visual of the dreams that we've been talking about in our services. If in 2014 you were here dreaming of a trajectory of this way, then your dream has been realized. So we're just going to keep that dream going and keep that trajectory, that upward motion going forward. So if we can go to the next slide. This is some of the little bit more nitty-gritty for those that like a little bit more nitty-gritty. The cash on hand is strong at over $500,000. So if you look at the upper right-hand corner, again, I apologize for the color coding here. It's a little difficult to read, but 538,548 is what the actual cash on hand is as of the end of December 31st, 2018. Our capital improvement minimum of $40,000, that's a bylaw requirement. We're at $56,063, so that's more money specifically for improving building grounds, parking, etc. And then a contingency you'll see is at $75,000. That's really just an extra insurance, if you will. That's just really, if things go really in a bad way, we have at least a contingency fund of $75,000. And the last item I'm really excited about is the $300,000 that's in the lower right-hand corner. That is investments into a brokered CD that the Finance Committee and the board were able to approve so that you're getting a higher interest for your money in a low-risk vehicle. It's not huge interest, but it's better than sitting in our checking account while we as a congregation make decisions about this facility and the future. We are, there's a little resource there to tap into for future work that could be done here or somewhere else. That's a brokered CD. It is FDIC insured, and there's some flexibility about when we withdraw that as well too. So that's the short story. Again, thank you very much for your generous support. Thank you for entrusting this board to manage your contributions. I believe we're in a very solid position and we're moving in a very healthy way going forward. So of course I'll be here afterwards if you have questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Now I'm going to invite Judith Killian up to talk with us a little bit about development and our 100-year celebration.
Thank you, Greg. Well, I get to work with Reverend Pat and Unity Minneapolis on a piece of some of those numbers that Jim just went over with us. So I get to work with the development part of your giving. And first of all, I just want to thank you all that we can have the numbers that we have and let you know how much we appreciate your generous giving. A really important part of the monthly budgeting process is for us to sign up for our consistent giving. And every May, we have a little bit of a consistent giving campaign, encouraging people who would like to give that way to sign up and commit to being a part of their own individual household budget so that that money can be contributed to our church's monthly budget. And we have increased how many people give those, are signed up on the consistent giving and our total monthly. As you can see from 2017 to 2018, we made an increase in both the monthly gifts and the total monthly giving. And that just really helps Jim and his team and Maggie and what she has to do when it comes to budgeting. So thank you for that. Thank you for responding and being a part of the Consistent Giving program. We also would like to thank the Cuneo Estate and the Kramer Estate for their legacy gifts to the church this past year. We very much appreciate those estates and those of us who have considered keeping Unity Minneapolis in your legacy planning as you think about what you would like to do after your transition and where you'd like to see your money go. But we would like to appreciate those two estates that we received or gifts this past year. Also, just to recap our year-end giving, we had a very successful campaign this last year, and a lot of people participated with testimonials as well as gifts. 2017, we ended the year with 117 gifts. This year, we had 166 gifts come in at the end of the year for a total of $136,000. So thank you very much. That is part of our budget, so it is a very important piece to end our year strong so that we can assure that we can continue to do our mission and vision work into the following year. And so we are able to step into 2019 strong. So thank you very much. So the next thing I wanted to talk about is the 100-year celebration. And as I'm sitting here thinking about starting to have this conversation, I'm reminded that in service, Reverend Pat or whoever's up here every Sunday says, wherever you are on your spiritual journey, you're welcomed here. And I just want to say, wherever I am on the 100-year celebration planning, I hope I'm welcomed here because a year ago, I think we were up in the Fillmore room and we had kicked this off as Carolyn was going to help me, Vinup was going to help me plan this, and we were asking for people to volunteer and to chair. And I think I was a little ahead of myself in that there were some kind of big decisions that we had to make as a church, as a board, and Carolyn and I had to do some research on where we were going to have this and put some pieces together before we were ready. So I'm going to just apologize that if you did sign up for something and you haven't been called, you will maybe now be called, or if you're called to do so, to let me know, because we are seeking now committee chairs. We've made some big decisions. We're excited about the date, which is October 12th, so I hope everyone already has that on their 2019 calendar. It's going to be at the beautiful Metropolitan Ballroom. The food's going to be amazing. The music's going to be amazing. The dance floor is going to be big. So like Friday night, we're going to be filling that dance floor up and having a great time. So we have those decisions made. So now we need some committee chairs, if you'd be so called or interested, to help with the decor or the history research of both this church and probably the city of Golden Valley. If someone wants to help coordinate inviting special guests to come and maybe helping facilitate where they stay and how they get to and from that weekend, we could use help with marketing as well as volunteer coordination. So please see me, or there'll be announcements in the bulletin as well, or you can give Connie a call and she can direct you to me as well. But I'd love for your help, and I'm prepared now to work with you on those areas. Another way you can help is great gatherings. We are going to introduce those at the party on October 12th, and we really hope that this is a kickoff to something we do every year. What these are is they're an opportunity for us to continue to build conscious connections and support Unity Minneapolis. They're fixed price events hosted by we the people, but outside of church. And you may have been at other auctions or maybe other places where you volunteer where they have these. So what they would be is an event that someone would be hosting. So maybe I'd be hosting a pizza and pool party, and it would be a fixed price, maybe $25 a person, and I'm willing to host 20 people for this event. And the information would all be available. We hope to have a calendar filled with events, so a couple events a month. And at the event on October 12th, you can sign up for ones that you're interested in. If you can't make it to that event, or if you forget to sign up, we will have continual opportunity to sign up throughout the year. But what we want to talk about right now is for you to start thinking about maybe one of these great gatherings that you could donate. So if you're a knitter, maybe you'd be willing to have 6 people at your home to take 3 knitting lessons in a month. Or maybe you like to cook Thai food, and so you want to have a Taiwan dinner party, or a sing-along, or a spa day. Think about maybe your business or things you enjoy doing, and in ways that you would want to open up your home or a park or an activity amongst other people in our community. And it's just a really great way to get to know other people. All the money goes back to the church, and it builds both fund and fundraising. So I just want to start your minds churning about ways you can contribute that, because I think it's going to be really fun. And we hope it's a success this next year and that we can just build on it. So thank you very much in advance for your help.
Thank you, Judith. I didn't know you had a pool. Now I'd like to invite Patty Shevik up to provide our teller's report from our voting.
Thank you, Greg. So I want to congratulate everybody won. So that's great. And I'd like to congratulate Teresa Belden for getting a 2-year term. And the good news is once she completes that, she'd be eligible to run again. So that's awesome. And then Margie Olson and Greg Peterson for 3-year terms. So congratulations. Now I believe we're voting next for that, so I'll kind of tee this up for you. Sure. So how the nominating committee works is that Greg will call for a vote for a representative from the congregation, which is what Joan fulfilled last year. So he'll call for nominations for that, and then we also call for an alternative person, which last year was Diane Hansen. I don't know where she, oh, there she's right there. Just in case because it's a little ways off, just in case something comes up and they can't fulfill that, then we would call on the alternative. And then once that committee gets together, then they kind of talk about who they want to chair, and then they call that person and ask them to chair. So that's kind of how it works. So Greg will call for those votes.
Thank you, Patty. I might need help with names, so help me if I need help. Do we have a call from the floor for anyone who would be interested in serving as a member from our congregation on the nominating committee? Going once. Diane Hansen. Perfect. Thank you, Diane. And now we need an alternate. Someone who'd be willing to serve as an alternate if Diane is unable to fulfill her responsibilities on the committee. Awesome. Kelly Pratt. I think we need to vote on that, don't we? Let's vote on it. Yeah, let's have them stand up. Diane Hansen and Kelly Pratt, can you please stand? Can I have a motion, please, to accept Diane Hansen as our nominating committee representative for 2019-2020 and Kelly Pratt as our alternative alternate? So moved. Gloria has so moved. Second is Sarah Cox. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. And now I'm going to invite Reverend Pat up to close us in prayer. Then we will adjourn the meeting, and then we'll open things up, Q&A forum for any questions that we have from you attending and those joining us live streaming. Okay, perfect.
Sweet Spirit, we give thanks for a successful meeting. Ideas shared, dreams held in our heart, and we are grateful. Thank you. Thank you, God. And so it is. Amen.
This meeting is so adjourned. Now we'll open things up for a Q&A forum. Nancy has a microphone. We'd like people to use the microphone asking questions just so everybody can hear and so that we can also make sure that those listening from their homes can also hear. Any questions? Jay, do we have anything from any of our? None. Diane.
Accessibility of the building. Where are we? What are we working on?
I will let Margie speak to that.
Thank you for your question. So all of our plans for change include 100% accessibility for a variety of different potential congregants. And so all of the plans that will be drawn up and all the work that will be done will make the building or wherever we go be accessible to all.
Any follow-up?
Apparently.
I guess I was a little more down to earth in my question, as in, yes, you're talking with an architecture firm, but are there concrete things happening going forward? Are there committees meeting about elevator? Are there things meeting about, meeting in the upper parking lot versus the lower one, et cetera? Just the very nuts and bolts.
So if what you're asking about is next week, will there be different accessibility? I'm not aware of those plans in the works. When we come to meet next week, we will talk a little bit more about what the schedule is. But we look at breaking ground in 2019 and to be done, in the months after that, and that the space would be fully transformed if we're here, so that it is fully accessible. And so rather than a fix here and a fix there, it would be, what do I want our space to be? And we will make it that way. And so we'll talk about that next week, but accessibility is just a key component of everything going forward, which is very different than what we have now. We had, fun fact, one of the architects, because several came through here, one said that he counted 16 different levels in our space. He said that was a record for him. So we're just, as soon as we begin the process, we just won't go another day without accessibility in all parts of our space. That's just a value that we're going to make happen. Okay.
Thank you, Margie. Yeah, the board was absolutely united. That was first and foremost. Accessibility was number one on all of our lists, and we know that issue is going to be solved. So, Eddie. Oh, I'm sorry, Sarah Cox.
I have the microphone.
You do.
That means I get to speak. I just want to do a huge shout out on behalf of all of us to all of our staff, to Reverend Pat and to the board, and all of our volunteers for making 2018 happen. I just think we need to say thank you. And one more thing. If you do not know about the Charles Fillmore Award, it is the highest award that is given to anyone, anywhere in the Unity movement, and our Reverend Pat gets it in June. Please mark your calendars. Please, please, if you've never been to a convention, and I'm sure there are many here who have not, mark your calendars and make this the year to go so we can support Reverend Pat. It's a huge tribute to him personally, and by the way, to us as well.
Thank you, Sarah. Moving over to Eddie.
I'm back to our favorite topic, facility committee. So, I know the accessibility is huge, which we all support. Is there any conversation about expanding the seats and also the parking, which in this church, I think that was the biggest bottleneck, prevented this church growing for many years. And I, as a person who deal with the ground for many years, I have seen so many people turning around, cannot find parking space and leaving because they don't want to park in church, Curtis Center. Or my main thing is accessibility is wonderful and great. We want to do it, but is there any conversation about the more parking space, more seating, better toilet, better restroom for the men's group? Men's, I don't know the women's, but we really have one of the worst.
I heard it's not much better.
I mean, or also any conversation about a reception area or a better friendship hall, because of I know there's a whole plan for it. We will talk about it in the future, in the next week. But is there have been any conversation about the other issues too, other than accessibility?
Yes, and thank you for that question. So lots of conversations. For those of you who are able to come next Sunday, and we will be live streaming it as well, so you could join that way if you're not able to be here in person. That will be the beginning of conversations. And then these architects that we've been interviewing, and the one that we chose, Van Man Architects and Builders, they are accustomed to coming and having a very specific format for getting information, giving information, and working with us to make decisions. So they're already accustomed to that, and we chose them because we want that. So we will have a plan to engage all of us in the way that you want to be engaged. And the other thing is we are doing this in the spirit of, in the guiding principle of, we're just going to completely redo wherever we need to. We're not willing to just do a little bit here and a little bit there. So when you come and you give input, and we'll also have the data from the surveys, but when you come and participate, you will make your priorities and you will say, this is what I want, and then we will do what we need to do to transform our space in all the areas that you just mentioned and more.
Adam?
Hi, Greg. Did I hear you say that you were going to be bringing a contingency of congregants or staff to the convention in June?
That's our hope, yes. So we haven't kind of sorted out all of the logistics of that yet, but whether it's a caravan of people from here, whether we're renting a bus or whatever, our hope is that we'll be able to bring a group of people from our community to support Reverend Pat when he accepts that award. It's June 20th, so.
And there's been some conversation about that 20th moving to the 21st or Friday, so I will.
Okay.
Is that going to be the 20th or the 21st? It will either be a Thursday night or either a Friday lunch.
Okay.
I'll find out more information.
For those of you who might not have heard that, the Reverend Pat is stating that there's a possibility that it could move to Friday, a luncheon, possibly. So more information will be forthcoming on that.
Oh, you're talking about his award card?
Yeah.
The convention doesn't change.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
They're talking about when they're going to celebrate. That's what you're talking about.
What are the full dates of the convention?
The full day will start that Monday. I'll have that date on you, but the award will be.
That would be the 17th.
The convention itself starts on the 17th. It's a full week, but the award itself will be given, the awards itself will be given either on a Thursday evening, that's the banquet, or it will be given on a Friday for lunch. And I will have that nailed down hopefully within the next couple of days.
Perfect.
Some concrete information.
What's the purpose of the convention? Is that something for?
The convention is for, the question was, what is the purpose of the convention? Each and every year, Unity has what we refer to as our international convention, and we have international representatives come as well. And it's programs, it's music, it's worship, it's a full week of hundreds of ministers and lay people getting together and having a good time, but also learning a lot as well. There's also their annual business meeting there as well. Remember that Unity Worldwide Ministries is a membership organization, so if any voting needs to take place, we have voter representation there as well.
Glenn?
Questions. Do we own this property outright?
We do. We also own the man's property next door as well.
Is Van Man more impressive to those who have had contact with him with refurbishing and renovating existing properties or in building new ones?
Love this question. So we actually went through a pretty rigorous process for all the variety that architects bring. And Van Man, as well as some others, they specialize in worship places, so churches, and they've done both, building from the ground up and refurbishing. And we made sure that we toured facilities that did both. And so and what we also like about them is they are architects that do architect work in a way that we appreciate, as well as they do the full building process. And so that gave us some of the other goals that we were going after, but we were able to see some of their spaces and talk with them and interview them, and they have mindset for both and have helped congregations with redoing as well as relocating.
And I think it's important to note that, it won't be a matter of Van Man was very impressed with our space and our facility and the possibilities that we have for this space currently. We recognize as a board that it's not a matter of renovate. If we entertain the idea of moving, we'll be renovating there too. So it's stay and renovate or move and renovate. So renovating is kind of it's not an either or proposition. So, so just bear that in mind and come along on the journey and help us, make those decisions.
And I would also say that because we own this property outright, we don't pay the mortgage anymore. We own the property next door outright. We don't pay the mortgage anymore. And so we think of the property next door as a part of this property. Now, there's some zoning things and some things that would have to happen in order to be able to, if we wanted to use that as a part of this. But all of those options are on the table, and we'll explore all those, and they'll help us with that.
Eddie?
Changing the topic is a Unity Convention. I think it's not described well. It's Unity People's Convention. It's the largest gathering of Unity movement for a year. So it's not a little gathering. It's like the largest largest gathering of all Unity movement. So it's a kind of like that's the place where Unity people meet, the minister and other lay people. So I want to clarify that. Thank you.
Thank you for clarifying, Eddie. Any other questions, comments? Yep.
So I know last year we had talked about the online presence versus the in-person, and is that also kind of where it was last year? Has that shifted at all?
Well, we've made a lot more strides in that. Hiring TechGen is a huge piece of that in terms of providing better infrastructure for us in terms of supporting all of our IT needs. So they're going through a technology assessment right now. They'll be making some recommendations for us. We're moving towards, wanting to improve our live streaming capabilities. As I said, we're live streaming for the very first time our annual meeting today. And so we're wanting to be able to include people outside of these walls in our
So I guess
vision.
my ask is in terms of numbers that we've actually had this past year. Because wasn't it that there were more people online, if I'm remembering this right, in 2018 than there were actually showing up in the door? And is that still true? Is the trend the same? Has the
Nancy, do those numbers in the report reflect that?
I didn't get one of those. Thank you.
Any other questions? Anything from our online viewers? All right, well, thank you. This has been awesome. Enjoy the rest of this afternoon. We didn't get as much snow as they thought we were going to, so let's celebrate that, unless you're a snowmobiler. Thank you.